right, welcome everybody to the August edition of our Developer Roundtable. Obviously, I'm not your normal face. Chris is on vacation right now, so I'm going to be stepping in to take over. I'm Matthew, for those who don't know me, and I'm going to run the roundtable today. So it'll be a little less technically. I don't have any AIPs to present or anything like that, but we're going to go through some really cool stuff today. First off, before we get started, some comms issues. Keep your microphone muted unless you're speaking or you ask a question or you need to ask a question. It is being recorded, so be respectful and professional. And we don't need to remind me to click record because I already did it. For today's agenda, we're going to go over some things that hopefully you guys will like. I'm going to do this initial introduction, but then we have Mark here to talk about ARKTippr, and he's going to talk about some things that he launched this week. We have Vinny here to talk about something that you guys don't know about yet, which is the bridge chain update process that we're developing and the script that he is building to get everybody up to date. And then we're going to show a brief preview of the desktop wallet plugin manager, which is something that we showed one screenshot in the blog post yesterday if you missed it, but I've got an additional one to show you today, and we're just going to talk about that for a little bit, and then we'll take some questions at the end. So just to get started, I wanted to give a few comments about the Tier 0 program and just give an update. We launched it a little bit ago now, and we're really happy with how it's turned out so far. As you all know, Dated finished the first Tier 0 already, which was really cool, and he's working on his second. One of the things I would say is that while I really love the program, I would really love to see a little bit more participation, some new names maybe, and some new ideas. Something that maybe wasn't clear when we announced the program that I think is really important is that Tier 0s aren't just the projects that we post and that we put out to you guys. You can also submit your own ideas. And so I've reached out to a couple of community members in Slack just to say, hey, if you have any ideas, let me know. We accept proposals. So that's something that I think you guys should keep in mind. If you see something that you want to build that's not in a Tier 0, but you think it would be good for a Tier 0, you can always reach out to Sam or myself at ARK.io to make a proposal, kind of talk about what you want to build, and we can sort of refine it from there and maybe come up with an idea for how to make it official. So that's a part of the program that I think wasn't maybe as highly publicized or as clear that I want to make sure everybody understands is that you can propose projects if you have a really good idea that we haven't thought of yet. And that's one major component of the program that I'd like to see a little bit more of. That can be anything from something, for the desktop wallet, something for the Explorer. It could be a new plugin idea. It could be anything, really. We're open to all kinds of ideas. And scope as well. It could be a small project that takes a week, or it could be something that is a 3-month project or a 6-month project, like what Mark is working on. I think all of those are acceptable, and I'd love to see some more input from you guys on ideas that you have. I also just want to say, not to make a big deal about it or get into any details, but we had some pretty bad news yesterday. I think a lot of us are still a little bit sad about it, and I just want to say thank you to those of you who are here or who are watching this for being a part of our community, for supporting us in this project. Life is short, and the fact that you choose to spend some of your time here with us, we truly appreciate it. You guys mean the world, and I just want to make sure that we say thank you as many times as we can. Moving on, we're going to jump into ARKTippr. Mark has an update planned to show you guys and some new cool stuff that he's been building. So Mark, if you want to take over, show us what you got.
All right, thank you. Everybody can hear me, I think. Let's see if I take over the screen, if you can also see me. First of all, last week, we launched the direct deposit function for ARKTippr, meaning that you can send directly from your wallet, both the desktop and the mobile wallet, to ARKTippr clients, to ARKTippr users on both Reddit and Twitter. So I made a small video of how this actually works, so I don't have to do it live. And well, we all know that live things can go wrong often. So let me play it and talk you through it. I'm going to copy from the Explorer the ARKTippr wallet address, which is a registered delegate, so you can just search for the name and pass it in to send a transaction to that recipient, to ARKTippr. I'll just add an amount that I want to send to the end user, which is an amount where the fees will be taken off. I send it to myself on Reddit. So you see Mark S1970 at Reddit. I'm cheap, so you put in low fees and just follow the normal procedure to send a transaction. which of course is fairly easy. You'll see on the backend server that it will pick up this transaction and process it. It's going to do two things. First of all, it's going to forward the amount minus the fees to the end user, and it's going to send back a transaction to me with a confirmation what has happened. So both transactions are executed directly on chain, and you can see the outgoing transaction to my Reddit account. You see that it's a direct deposit coming from the address from the wallet that I just sent it from. And you can see the confirmation that ARKTippr sent to the wallet with the original ID of the transaction and the ID of the new transaction. And you can see that in Reddit I received the message and the amount. So this is all very straightforward, very easy. And the same way it goes to Reddit, we can also do it to Twitter. So I'm going to send a similar transaction to my own Twitter account, or say to ARKTippr with my Twitter account in the smart bridge. And of course, we're still cheap, so we're still going for the low fees. And following the same procedure as always. Very straightforward, very easy. Everybody can do this. And you see the server will pick it up on the back end, which is using webhooks to be precise. And it's sending out the both transactions, and it's sending out the message to Twitter. You see that one transaction here is not yet in the latest transactions, because one of the delegates is also sending out payments now. But you see the tweet has been sent, money has been received. I think very straightforward. I think very easy to use, and I hope you guys will actually make use of that. Here you can see the both transactions and the confirmation transaction. So that's fairly simple. That's one of the new features that we launched last week. And in addition to this, we're going to launch a new feature in, I think, the coming week. Let's see if I can share the other screen. Let's see, this should be Keynote. Yeah, so we're going to launch the on-chain API, which will allow you to add your own platform to ARKTippr, which is working in a similar way. It allows you to send transactions through the vendor field to ARKTippr and command that way your users' wallets and send transactions from them, between them, and between Reddit and Twitter. So adding your platform to ARKTippr, very straightforward. You can add it and allow your users to send and receive ARK and accepted bridge chains. You will forward your user commands to ARKTippr through the blockchain, so through the vendor field. And this way, it is harder for third parties to scam. It's harder for people to spam. It's harder for people to do a DDoS attack on my servers. And of course, it's the decentralized way. So in order for that, you first need to register a platform. A platform is your website name, your product name, your application name, and an authenticated wallet. The authenticated wallet is the one that will be allowed to send commands to ARKTippr for your platform. And you send them in structured JSON inside the vendor field. I will give some examples later on. To register, you just send, in this case, the JSON structure with the command register and your platform name. Platform name will have a few limitations. Of course, you can register platforms like Facebook or YouTube or ARK, right? Common sense. And it will have to be unique. After your platform has been accepted or processed, that wallet will be able to send commands to ARKTippr through the blockchain. So anything coming from that wallet, any transaction coming from that wallet will be treated as a command, will be checked for the right structures, will be checked for the right JSON, and will be executed. The commands that we allow are simple. You can send, so you can have one of your users say send from his wallet to another user. You can have them ask for deposit address, the same way what you would do in Reddit. When you send Reddit, ARKTippr in Reddit, a command with deposit, it will return to you the address of that user. You can do a withdrawal request and you can do a balance request. Basically the same functionality that people will have in Twitter and in Reddit. So if we look deeper into this, a send command, for instance, will take the command send, the sender ID, which is the username of the person on your platform, the receiver ID, which is the username plus the platform where it's going to. So in this case, could be, for instance, Mark S1970 at Reddit, the amount as a string, and the token, because in this case we send ARK, but you could also send, I don't know, credit, for instance, or NOS once we're there, right? So there's a few structures, and you will get back from ARKTippr a transaction with the ID of your transaction, the outgoing ID, the transaction of the ID of the transaction that was executed, the explorer where you can find it, because again this can be another kind of token, and possibly an error message if something went wrong, right? So to keep this simple, we have the same for deposit, we have the same for withdrawal, and we have the same for balance. I will publish this document later on once we're going live after testing. I'm in the final stages of building and testing on my end, so I expect this. I was hoping to say end of this week, but I'm not going to make that. So I think end of next week we should be we should be up and running. I really hope you're going to use this. I think it's a great addition, and yeah. So please let me know. What do you think? What are the questions? Let me give back the screen to Matthew, and thanks for listening, guys.
Okay, so I have a few comments. I think first of all, this is really amazing. I have a question though. So with respect to the API,
Yeah.
I saw that, for example, if I'm trying to register my own website that I've created, don't I need some sort of a way to tell your system that I want to create a new account for somebody?
At the moment you request a deposit address, it will be created for that user. So at the moment, some user receives an amount, a transaction, the address will be created if it isn't there.
Okay, so basically when a deposit happens and the address isn't existing, then it will create it for them.
Yeah, that's also the same way it works for people on Reddit and Twitter, right? I didn't create.
But how will my website know that, okay, this was the deposit address for this person?
Your website. Yeah, so your user will send to your website a request like, give me my deposit address. You send it to me on chain, right? Then I send you back a reply with a deposit address and you can give it to your user.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right? And that way I don't have to know all your users. I don't have to know the structure of your users. You just send me like Mac at ARKplay, and then I give you a wallet address.
Yeah, that's really nice. Another question is there a way to say, for example, if I have registered some delegate name, then I should be able to register, for example, a new, let's say, domain name in this ARKTippr?
What do you mean? You register a platform name, right?
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's starts the same old like race to register all the names you can. Yeah.
At the moment you register platform name, you basically register a wallet address, an authenticated wallet address that will be able to send for that platform name, right? I've been thinking about adding functionality for you to able to change address or change name, but for the starters, I don't want to do that to not complicate things too much.
Yeah, that's fine. What I'm wondering is, what is stopping people from basically registering all the names they can? Yeah, because
I,
right
that's
now there is no penalty or there is no
yeah,
like
there's a fee.
substantial fees involved.
Yeah, there's a register fee for to prevent spam. I've initially set it in a document at 25 ARK, which I think is a bit too high at this moment, but for testing, I will probably lower it to 5 ARK or something like that.
Okay,
And
okay. So there is a
that
fees.
way, right, I prevent abuse. And also that fee is being used to cover a part of the transactions, the outgoing transactions to you with replies, right? So every time I send out a transaction with a reply, it's 0.008 ARK to be fast. And that's also covered basically by that registration fee.
Okay, that's awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, hey Mark, it's Justin here. How are you?
Hey Justin, all good, thanks.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I really love this update that you have here for ARKTippr, mainly because I already know that I'm going to be able to use a lot of this stuff myself. So that's very exciting for me. I wanted to kind of highlight one of the initial points of the procedure when you need to use the desktop wallet to send a tip to somebody on Twitter, for example. The user who wants to send a tip is putting in their deposit address for depositing the amount they want to tip out, and they're not sending it to ARKTippr's address, right?
If no, if you if you are sending through the wallet, you are sending to ARKTippr's address.
Okay, got it. So I
Right?
noticed I
Yeah,
noticed that when you paste it in the video, when you pasted the ARKTippr address,
yeah.
it wasn't the ARKTippr vanity delegate name, it was the actual address itself. Is that just for like convenience reasons or?
Well, I don't think you can actually paste in the vanity name, but it's the address that's linked to the vanity name, right? So I
Okay,
looked up in the Explorer ARKTippr vanity name in the search,
yeah.
gave me the address, and that's the address I passed it in. I don't think you can actually pass in ARKTippr vanity name directly in the address field, or at
Okay.
least last time I tried, it didn't work. So, but it's a while.
Okay, so my next suggestion outside of ARKTippr for the wallet would be if somebody wanted to send ARK to a delegate, there should be an auto lookup complete when you're typing in something to be like, oh, do you mean delegate blah? And then when other future delegates or other service providers register vanity names or delegates, then people don't have to know the address, right?
Yeah, that would be. I see something on the screen now. Refactor get wallet names in wallet selection. So that looks
Okay,
like
so
right. Dated is working on that 10 days
Yeah,
ago.
Eddie
okay.
linked it in the chat. It looks like there's a GitHub. There's an issue open for it. So
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome, awesome. And then my next question would be uh what happens if the user does a syntax error? Like, I'm not talking about they mistype the Twitter ID because, like, who knows, if it exists, you're going to send it. But, like,
Yeah.
what if they do, like, not an at symbol, but like an exclamation point because they, like, mistype something? Would a syntax error return the funds to the originating address, or what would it do?
No, it wouldn't because that is just a normal wallet. So it could also receive transactions from other sources like voting rewards and whatever. And then it would have to return every transaction that doesn't comply to a standard. So in that case, I guess it's going to be a manual intervention from my end if it's like a valuable amount, right, that people do wrong.
Yeah. Okay. So it would have to be
Or
like
it
a
could become
contact
a
support type
donation.
thing, right?
Hmm?
Yeah.
I
Syntax error
said, or
donation,
it could
right?
become a donation.
It could become a donation, yeah.
Okay, I
Yeah,
got you.
save Mark through Winter Fund.
Right. Okay, so my last question is, when you are a one human who is interacting with ARKTippr using multiple platforms, do you have separate addresses for each platform, or is it one?
No, separate addresses, because say you register John McAfee at Reddit as an account,
Yeah.
right? Because it
Uh-huh.
doesn't exist. I don't know if the John McAfee at Twitter is the one that is registered at Reddit.
Yeah, that
So you
makes
have
sense.
separate accounts. Yeah. So you can also transfer between your accounts that way.
This
You
is
can,
true.
right?
Yeah,
So with
it's
the
true.
cross-platform thingy.
Okay, so like a final something to think about, and not something critical or anything like that, but just something to think about might be to be able to set up forwarding services within a specific platform's address and kind of microcosm where, like, for example, let's say I use ARKTippr all the time, but I primarily use it for Reddit type stuff and not for Twitter type stuff. And I'm always interacting with other people on Reddit more than Twitter. But people might tip me on Twitter, or I might want to send tips on Twitter. So I'll set up a forwarding service for my Twitter to say, if somebody tips me on Twitter, send it here. And then I could set that up on chain, maybe?
Yeah, the thing is, I don't want to put too many information in a centralized part of the application.
Okay, I see.
I would have to find a way to store these forwarding requests on chain,
Yeah.
right, and access them at the moment that that something happens. Well, I'm not saying it can't be done, right? But it's something that needs to be thought out really profoundly. So it's
Yes, I
actually what,
see.
yeah.
Okay, cool. Well,
All right.
again, I'm very impressed with these new features, and I thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Thank you, Justin.
All right, I'm muting myself now.
Hey Mark, a few comments.
Hey, yeah, please.
So I love that it is not only it doesn't only interoperate between platforms but also between chains, and I think it's a great use of the smart bridge field. Don't think we have seen many apps doing that so far, and really impressed. I think we could not only receive tips but also could use ARKTippr for payments, right?
Basically, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We already have like a payment system in place for the stickers of Justin,
Oh yeah, right. So
right?
for for example, I could, for example, if I run a raffle, I could accept ARKTippr. I could let users buy tickets, raffle tickets with a tip from ARKTippr, essentially.
Yeah, yeah. I think we talked about that like last year,
Yeah,
how to implement that. But it should be really straightforward, right?
yeah.
I
Really
can,
excited that we have an API now. It's completely on chain. That's really neat.
yeah.
Yeah, great work.
All right, thank you. Anybody else?
I think that's it. All right, thank you, Mark. That was great. Really cool stuff. And I can't wait to see what we do. Some of you guys may not know this, but on the exploratory goals for ARKTippr was a MetaMask style plugin for Ark, and that's going to be one of the next projects he's working on as well. So really excited to see ARKTippr keep evolving, and then also that new project. So hopefully we'll have updates on that and some of the next roundtables. But thanks, Mark.
All right, guys, gonna mute. Thank you.
All right, moving on. Sorry, Vinny, I put your name like that. Maybe you wanted an NY, but Vinny's going to talk to us
No, that's fine.
about the bridge chain update process and a new script that we're working on to help get some of these bridge chains up to date on the most recent version. So I'm going to let him take over and kind of talk about that.
Yeah, let me pull my screen here. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
All right. So when we released Deployer a few months ago, we made the process of deploying an ARK bridge chain pretty easy and automated, but updating the chains was still a manual process. So we've been working on an extension to deployer that will also automate the process of updating the bridge chain to the latest release of core as well. So we can see here on the docs the actual process, and it comes down to 2 steps. First, we need to update the Genesis node where the chain was deployed on, and then later we need to update all the peers in the network. Basic stuff that we already do ARK, but when you deploy a bridge chain, you have to do this manually. There is no automated script to do this yet. So I'll go here over the docs, and once we run the update core script, it is an update to deployer. It will do a bunch of tasks behind the scenes. It will resolve merge conflicts. It will update config files. It will compile core. And then once it does everything, it will push the update to a branch on the bridge chain's GitHub repository. We can see here. This is a chain that I've updated a few hours ago. And it also makes a script that can be used by relay nodes to update each peer. So first, the bridge chain owner will update the chain and all the files and all the config files. And then later on, all the peers will run the update script until we have everybody in the chain updated. So I made a little video here just showing how it goes on a live chain. I had a small chain with only 5 peers running v2.3. And I'll just be copying and pasting the instructions from the docs. It's pretty straightforward. So here's the Genesis node on the top. And I'll run the script and we'll do all the tasks behind the scenes. It is already compiling 2.5. And here it has already pushed the update to my GitHub repository. We can see here that the chain was updated to 2.5.19, the latest release. And now I just have to pull this update script that you generated and run it on each of my peers. And this will be done by all the delegates and everybody that's running a relay node on this bridge chain. So here's my first relay node. I'll speed it up a bit. I'll run the same script on all of my 5 peers. And it took about 15 minutes. And all of my peers were updated to 2.5.19, and it was pretty much all automated. And there were no manual steps that had to be done besides updating the deployer script and running the script, pushing the changes to GitHub. So why make this process as easy as it can be, right? It was already easy to deploy a chain. It's not too hard to update the chain manually, but I think it's important to make this process easy as well, because besides all the features and improvements that were added to core in the latest releases, it's really important to keep the chains updated so they have the latest security patches applied. So if there were any security concerns fixed in the latest release of core, the bridge chains will also be protected. So it's crucial to keep the bridge chains core updated, and this script will make it a whole lot easier to do so. So the core updates can be done either this way or manually in V2. But we're designing a new built-in system for V3. So every chain will have a built-in updater in V3 that will make it even easier to keep the chains up to date. So this script will only be used for V2, and in V3 it won't be used anymore. It won't be needed anymore. But it's important to have an easy script to update bridge chain, so we can keep all of them protected and updated to the latest release. So it's pretty straightforward. I think that covers it all. Soon, once we release it, bridge chains will be able to update the chains in just these few steps, which in my opinion is really cool. There won't be, we have many people, students and many people that are new to blockchain in general. They're just getting started with blockchain development. They are just experimenting with ARK, and this will make it really easy for all kinds of if the user can deploy a chain with deployer, they will be able to update it in just a few clicks.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I got questions.
All right.
course
But
you do.
first, I want to say that this is amazing,
It's
and I'm so
Friday.
excited about this.
Thank you.
And Vinny, welcome as well. This is the first time I'm hearing your voice, so fantastic.
Oh yeah, thank you,
Uh,
Jesse.
yeah, for sure. So right off the bat, what I notice is that when, like, for example, I've deployed a couple example chains, for myself and stuff. And when updating the Genesis node, we update the Genesis node with some new code. It pushes the new code to GitHub. And
Yeah.
then when I need to update seed peers, so the seed peers are the peers that I also control. So I control the Genesis node and the seed peers. So I could go into each of my seed peers and do an ARK space update, and then it will pull new code from the GitHub that was just pushed, right?
Yes.
Okay, so there's this new script now called update.sh that can be used with peers as well, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the main difference between the update.sh script and the ARK update in the core CLI?
Okay, so the ARK update in the core CLI, it only works for ARK main chain and dev chain, in mainnet and devnet.
Okay.
So for bridge chains, so actually ARK update on the ARK CLI, it runs some background scripts that are already prepackaged by ARK. So bridge chains, they don't get any of that stuff. They have to update the chains manually.
Okay.
In this case, for example, if I deploy my own bridge chain and I run, let's say my bridge chain handle its example chain. If I run example chain update, it won't do anything like it does on the ARK mainnet or devnet.
Okay, I see. So the other commands like example chain relay start and example chain relay stop, they all function fine, but example chain relay update doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything because that's a feature on the ARK mainnet and devnet, because ARK's core, it is published on NPM, and that makes the process a whole lot easier. Bridge chains could also publish their patches to NPM and have and implement their own ARK or example chain update script, but it is a more it is a different kind of process, and I think for more beginner type of users, this process will be easier to do, to just run an update core script on the deployer that they are already used to, because they used it to deploy the chain.
Okay, I see. So is there a way to possibly create like an integration between the update.sh so it becomes doable from the example chain update?
Yeah, we can actually add a new doc page about that and instruct bridge chain owners how they can set up their own update script and publish the packages to npm and have it work the same way as it
Okay.
does on the ARK mainnet and DevNet. That's
Yeah.
actually a good idea. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I guess it's not a huge deal, but as somebody who's not on the highest levels of development myself, like I would have been trained to do specific things based on running ARK relay nodes and other ARK type things. So I would expect the update process to be similar to what I was already used to. So whatever you can come up with there would be fantastic. But the documentation is amazing. So if the documentation says to update your bridge chain relays, do this, that's just as easy. But it would be nice to have it a little bit seamless, a little bit more seamless.
Yeah, for the process is a little bit different, but for bridging owners, there's a few more steps, but for all the it makes it easier for all the delegates and relay node operators to update it. They just have to run a single update.sh script.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
and let me be clear. Like this is very easy. Like I could easily do this without any problems at all, and I'm very impressed with this whole situation. But that does lead me into another question about the seed nodes because with the seed nodes, they're owned by the founders, and
mhm.
so is there a way to using this new one-click deployer mechanism or some other way to update all seed peers with like one click instead of having to go into each seed peer individually and do an update?
Yeah, so this script is not related to one click. It is an
Okay.
extension to the deployer that we already have.
Oh, okay.
But in one click, there'll be a focus on V3 that's coming up. And on V3, the update process will be built in on every chain. So every chain will have an update script that will pull all the updates from the main core repository. So this is a step that we have to do on V2, but one click will focus more on V3 and users will be able to seamlessly update all of the core nodes that they have added on one click. So it will
Ah.
be one click to deploy chains, to deploy peers and nodes, and to also update nodes.
So I think the important thing here to understand that I want everybody to be clear on is that this script that we're pushing right now is to make it as easy as possible for people who use the deployer when we launched it before we have the official built-in update systems available. So it's sort of a stopgap just for the few people that are out there right now who use the deployer and need to get to the current version. By putting it into CLI and doing all those other things, we're actually making additional steps for the bridge chain owner who's already struggling to figure out how to update. This is literally the simplest way possible to make it for the bridge chain owner who's struggling to be able to get to the most recent version. In future versions with one click and with 3.0, it's all going to be built in. It's all going to be seamless. It's going to be super easy, kind of like what you're talking about. But
Right.
this is kind of a stopgap for this one version or two versions where we don't have that yet. So I think that just look at it as this is an interim process. We are building the more, sophisticated built-in seamless process, but it's going to take time. So in the meantime, we're pushing this script that makes it super easy for the bridge chain owner, and we're focusing on making it as easy as possible for the bridge chain owner because the delegates, I mean, they know how to run an update script. So
Yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. I fully understand.
It is actually easier to update a chain this way for bridging operators than to have them make their own CLI update script. So for beginners, this process will be actually easier for them. And like Matt said, it is just we're just filling a gap while we're developing the V3 updating functionality to be built in our bridge chains.
Can you use this to update see, after you create a bridge chain, then you add your plugins to it, then you'd want to be able to distribute all those plugins to the nodes delegates on your chain. So can this be used to update all of your nodes, all the delegate nodes, to be running all the plugins that you've added or created?
Yeah, great question. So this script will update all the core default packages. So if you update your chain and then you add more plugins to it later, they will be available on GitHub. So once delegates and relay nodes, they run the update.sh script, it will pull the update and it will also pull all the plugins that you have added to the chain. So usually you will first update the chain, and then you will make sure that all your plugins have been, all your plugins are compatible with the latest version that you have to update it to. And then you push your plugins to the GitHub repository as well. So once delegates and relay operators, they install this update, all your plugins will come alongside.
Oh, okay, great. So it's actually pulling the update from your own repository and not from the ARK core repository. So it includes your own updates.
Yeah,
that was
so
the first part.
Yeah, it makes a new branch on the repository with the update. So here, oh, I don't have access to this one. So here's the first branch that is created when the chain is deployed. It is running 2.3, and once you run the update script, it will make this new branch with all the changes, and then you can just add your plugins. If you have made plugins, if you already had plugins on the first branch, they will be here on the plugins folder as well. They will be kept in. Then you just have to make sure they are compatible with this version of core that the bridging has been updated to. And once delegates and peer operators, they update the chain, everything will come alongside because it's on your own repository.
Oh, okay, that's handy. Kind of like WordPress, you have child themes that you'd use for your own customized code, so they don't get overwritten by updates from the.
Yeah. The only things that are overwritten are maybe config files like plugins.js. It is a file that usually it is changed as updates happen, but we make a backup of this file so you can compare the new version to the version that you had before. So all your plugins are disabled, but you can just enable them again. And it is basically the only thing that's overwritten. And then the core files, the main files from the core packages are updated as well, but your plugins are kept intact.
Oh, great. Yeah, this makes it a lot easier then.
Yeah.
Creating customized chains and distributing the plugins everywhere. Good. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any more questions? All right, I think we're good. Matt, I'll give it back to you.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Vinny.
Mhm.
So that's just a new process that we're starting. We obviously got some feedback. You know, we've all seen the comments in Slack. There's some people who have bridge chains that were struggling to figure out how to update to the newest versions. And we wanted to kind of make an easy way to do that until our official built-in solutions are done. So like I said, this is kind of an interim solution for the versions that we're on right now until 3.0 comes out, where it will kind of all be built in. All right, thanks again, Vinny. And we're going to move on to the desktop wallet plugin manager preview, which I will kind of lead up. I just wanted to throw this in here to give you guys a little quick look at how we're going to manage plugins here soon. We had a couple questions yesterday in Slack, and so I just wanted to throw this in. The new plugin manager, just a few notes. It's going to allow for discovery of new plugins directly in the desktop wallet. So it will alleviate the process right now where you have to go and copy and paste it into a folder and do all of that. It'll have a search feature for the discovery. It's going to have basically developers are going to register an NPM for their plugins, which will allow us to discover them through the structure that we're using. And you'll be able to do installation removal and also be notified and update directly from the desktop wallet. So I just got a couple of pictures here. You saw one of them yesterday, but you didn't see this one yet. This is sort of what the front end piece will look like. We're still programming it, developing it, so this isn't actually from the wallet. This is our design. But you can kind of see what it's going to look like here and how we're going to manage it moving forward. And then
Matt, we can't
also,
see your screen. You need to reshare your presentation.
oh, hold on. Now can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it now.
All right, thanks, Mac. Sorry about that. Yeah, so this is kind of the first screen, what the initial, when you go into plugins now, what it will look like. It will allow you to do a list or a grid view, and it'll kind of list out your plugins. You can do, you see there's a search bar, you can go to your installed plugins. You can still install by a URL or a file, so you still have that option if somebody doesn't want to register a package in NPM or whatever the case is. But in this specific version, you'll be able to do all of those options, and we kind of give you a better system of doing it, not having to do it manually. So a built-in system that makes it a lot easier to install and manage your plugins, as opposed to what we have right now, where it's kind of all manual. The other shot that we showed yesterday in the blog post, I don't know if you all saw it, or 2 days ago, whenever it was, is the individual plugin itself. So when you go into a plugin, it's going to allow you to enable or disable the plugin. That second little button there will be the update button. So it will turn a different color and show you if there's an update to the plugin that you can install. And then it will also allow you to remove it with the trash can. And then we have the description of the plugin, a URL to the homepage if there is one, or to the NPM package, and then just some information about the plugin. So essentially, we're going to be doing this major update. This is a tier 0 right now, and Eddie is working on it. It's a really cool project. I think it's going to help a lot with the management of plugins moving forward and alleviate some of the issues that other people have had. We will be looking at some sort of blacklist functionality. I'm not sure how that's going to work yet, just in case people start uploading things that are illegal. I think it's necessary because the product is tied to our company, and if people are uploading, child porn or something that's blatantly illegal, we need a way to manage that. However, we will talk to the community a little bit more about what kind of rules and guidelines we set for how we go about blacklisting something, and that's something that we're kind of thinking about now. So if you guys have any thoughts on that, feel free to hit us up in Slack with some ideas, because I think that's something that we want to do right, but is necessary moving forward. So anybody have any thoughts just kind of on these two screenshots, kind of how it looks, things you'd like to see in the plugin manager, kind of on what we've said so far?
Is there a system in place to somehow isolate what things the plugin can access? So for example, if I have a plugin and, or let's say if I download some plugin into my wallet and I don't want to give it access to my private keys or something, how do I do that?
So the plugins right now are sandboxed. Although we have been doing a lot of security testing, Alessio has been doing a lot of testing for us on the plugin system and finding issues where there are ways to kind of jump out and do things that we didn't intend. So we're doing a lot of testing right now on the new system to make sure that it's secure, but it is isolated and sandboxed to the point where every plugin, when you go to install it, tells you what it has access to and will give you an outline of what it's able to do. You can't quite see it in here, but under like the bottom part where it says permissions, and then it says embedded web pages, API requests, access to profiles, each plugin will list kind of what permissions it needs and is using, and that will help us kind of identify things for you guys and what it has access to.
Okay, nice. And the second question is, I assume that these plugins are using some sort of, let's say, key-based authentication from the original GitHub account. So for example, if somebody lost control of their GitHub and something got pushed to their account, how would the plugin downloader know that this is an actually authenticated thing and not something that just randomly got uploaded?
So I would say in this initial MVP version, I don't think we have built a system that in depth. I think that there is, we have like 4 disclaimers in this, that it's in a state still where you need to make sure that you understand what it is you're installing as far as plugins go. The official ones from the team will have a check mark so that you know that they're ARK ecosystem plugins, but any third-party plugins, there will be an aspect of security of it, just like there is with Chrome and with any other system, where because we are not completely vetting, because it is somewhat decentralized and we don't approve every single application or plugin, that there will be situations where you need to make sure that you understand what you're installing. If somebody's GitHub gets hacked and somebody pushes a malicious version, at this point in time in this version, I don't think that we would have a way to identify that, and I'm not sure that's an easy solution even long term. So that's something that we can definitely think about though.
Okay, thanks.
I think even right now on Google Chrome and some of the other stores, there's quite a bit of potential for things like that to go wrong. So it's definitely a difficult challenge, and it's something that obviously we'll talk to Alessio about and see kind of what options are out there. If you have any other ideas, though, feel free to shoot them to me and we can talk about it. Any other questions about the plugin system, Justin?
Yeah, hi. No, the plugin system is pretty straightforward, and I like the design really is great, and I think that it'll inspire a lot of community developers to really get some awesome stuff done with it because they'll be able to see how cool it will be presented in this marketplace-esque type environment where they'll be able to say, hey, it's on there and I made that. And I think that's great.
Yeah, obviously this is our initial MVP version. This will be search functionality, installation, removal, updates, all that kind of stuff. But we will continue to expand it as we move forward with new features and hopefully continue to develop, the security of it and all of that, like we discussed a minute ago.
Yeah, no doubt.
Any other questions about the plugin system? I think it's really cool. It's something we wanted to do obviously from the beginning, but the initial version, because we were making updates to the wallet to even allow plugins, we didn't kind of build the GUI out yet. So now really to kind of take this next step, I think is really fun. And I'm excited to get this out there. Hopefully by having this better system kind of built in, easier to install, we get more people developing plugins and more people using them too.
I have more of a comment, not really a question, but I think
Sure.
it would be very interesting. Maybe you guys have already thought of this, but I think it would be really interesting to have some sort of a reputation management thing. So, for example, each plugin would have its own reputation where the users could say, okay, this might be a potential unsafe thing to download, so don't use it or something.
I think comments
Yeah.
would be good for that. I mean, just like on the App Store. You know what
So let me comment on that for a minute and talk about it. So one of the things we want to do ultimately long term is have an entire rating system like any other app store would have. I think it's important to point out right now that this first version is to test the GUI to get the system in, the installation, removal, updating, all of that, and make sure it works. And then we will continue to expand it with additional things like ratings. One thing though is, like I said a minute ago, we were considering the option of a blacklist. And so I think we do need some kind of system for people to be able to flag to where we can investigate something and see if it is actually harmful or not. So that's something that we'll probably be looking at for an initial version. However, down the road, one of the things that we can do is build into the desktop wallet the ability to enable or disable pulling ratings and reviews and things like that from the full marketplace that we're building, which we'll talk a lot more about later on, a different month when we're closer to launching it. But the marketplace itself will have a lot of ratings, a lot of systems built in for that kind of social influence. And so those are things that you would be able to enable access to within the plugin manager from the wallet, that it would be able to pull data from that marketplace and some of those reviews. So that's something we definitely are looking at long term that we want to focus on after we get the initial system in and make sure that it works right and everything's good. Did that kind of answer your question, Mac?
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree though. I think having those kinds of systems in there, being able to flag, being able to rate and review, kind of all of those are really important for any kind of marketplace. So we will definitely be building those. Some of them are already actually in the works, but they probably, at least the rating system won't be in this first version. But hopefully some kind of flagging system can make it into the first version if we're lucky. So.
Okay, nice.
All right, that's it for the plugin manager then. After that, that's our last item for today. So if there's any other open questions, I'll feel free to take those now. Anybody has anything they just want to add or comment on or any questions, feel free. Wow. All right.
I mean? We covered a lot of ground with
Yeah.
everything else.
Well, I appreciate you guys going easy on me today in Chris's place. Next month, Chris will be back and he can have more technical conversations instead of my less technical influence. But I appreciate everybody showing up today. Like I said in the beginning, we really appreciate you guys and our community and what you bring to the table, and just being so involved and caring so much about the product. It really means a lot to us. So thank you for being here today with me, and have a good day.